get like very grown-up chairs. You know, Neil Young and Al Gore got those cool chairs. We get these very grown-up chairs, Eckart. Last night, first of all, it was such a great pleasure to see you at Mark's home, as always. And one of the most amazing things about you, and is whether we are talking in private, just the two of us over dinner, or whether you are talking to a stage of thousands of people, you are the same. It's just an incredible ability to be you, no matter where you are.
Well, you too. I observed the way you talked privately with people, with me, with other people, then you get on stage. You're the same person on stage as you are off stage, whereas many people, the moment they get on stage, they act, they perform a role, they think they need to act, they're not fully themselves, they're not fully present within. So it becomes an act. Now it may be a very polished act, some people are very good, very polished public speakers, but they do not touch the audience the way you touch the audience when you are connected with yourself, and you realize you don't need to play a role, you can just be who you are. And that's where the real power comes from, when you realize the power is already within you, and there's no need to pretend to be somebody else. I remember Oprah was telling me, by the way, I observed the same thing with Oprah. She's the same off stage or off the TV cameras as she is on camera. There's no transition. And this first came to her, she told me when she was in her early 20s, she was a newscaster, and her role model was Barbara Walters. She wanted to be like Barbara Walters, and then when she read the news on a local station somewhere, she kind of acted out that role in her mind of being Barbara Walters. And one day she misread something on the screen. She read the word Canada, and she stopped at Canada. Of course, sorry, I meant Canada. And then she laughed. And in this moment of laughter, her role image collapsed, and she could feel this energy coming through. And that was the beginning of the real Oprah emerging, when she let go of the need to play a role. So I think that also has some relevance to the people here, because unconsciously people play roles in business. You are a particular person when you go interacting with people in conducting business affairs, and then you may be a very different person in private life. So this is really not perhaps totally relevant to our subject matter, but it is important that to be fully yourself, you do not need to switch roles. In fact, you can relinquish roles and just be present, be who you are now. So we could talk about that for a long time, but I think that's the gist of it.
I think it's very relevant, actually, because when we limit ourselves to thinking that we are just our jobs or the roles we play, then we become disconnected from our bigger reality.
Yes.
It's interesting, you mentioned Oprah. When I was on her show recently, she asked me, and she asked you, and she asks all her guests, what do you know for sure? And I said to her, and I'd love to know what you said to her, I said to her, what I know for sure is that who you are, Oprah, or who I am, in our heart, in our center, is infinitely more magnificent than the biggest magnificent reality in the world. And that's such an important, freeing recognition, because it makes us less attached to whatever it is that our worldly role is.
Yes, yes.
So what did you tell her when she asked?
I don't remember, because she asked me the question several times. So.
What would you tell her what would you tell me if I asked you? What do you know for sure?
I know for sure that the essence of who I am is not the personality, or my conditioned mind, or my knowledge, or what I have achieved, or my failures, or my relationships. The essence of who I am is that innermost sense of presence. Just anybody can verify that right here and now. There was a famous philosopher, Descartes, who started thinking What is it that I can know for sure, for absolutely sure? What is it that is beyond doubt? And he thought and thought to say anything that, because he came at the end of the Middle Ages when they had all kinds of fantasies about reality. So in the end he came to the conclusion that the only thing he was thinking, okay, oh, I got it now. I think, therefore I am. He came to that conclusion. But of course that's not it either. If he had gone a little bit further, he would, and a little bit deeper, he would have arrived at what is it that underlies all the thinking that happens in people's minds almost continuously. What is it that makes that thinking even possible? And that's an underlying sense of just presence, being the presence. It's your own consciousness. It's the I am that's talked about in the Bible. I am that I am. When the question was asked, what is your name? In the Old Testament they asked God, what is your name? And the answer that came was the I am that I am. It's the innermost sense of beingness, which is it's so close to you. That is your true identity. And that's what I know for sure. I know that the rest is just surface phenomena. So if people can connect with that sense of underlying presence, and that is what these things are all about, that you just recommended, taking a moment off so that you declutter your mind, because many people's minds are full of clutter, one thought after another, they can't stop thinking. And so there's no clarity of vision anymore. And so it's extremely important to get back to this clarity of vision so that you create a little bit of space inside and realize there's more to you than you realized. And so you get to a sense of just presence right here and now. Let's just imagine that you cannot remember your past as you sit here and you lose interest in your future. So whatever happened in your past, your victories, your successes and your failures, right, you're not thinking about that right now. Let's imagine further, you can't even remember your name right now. What's left of you then? There's one thing left, and that's a very powerful sense of presence or beingness. And that's the I am. Before something gets added to it, I am this, I am that, I am that. So if you can get back to that underlying sense of I am, that is enormously liberating, and that is also the stillness that you talked about. It's finding that because that our sense of I am is a sense of inner stillness, and that's where creativity arises. That's also where joy arises, and what we call happiness, which sometimes is a very superficial thing, because you can say, I'm happy because I just won the lottery. That's a superficial thing. We know many studies have shown that many people win the lottery become very unhappy after the initial elation. So that's not the real happiness, but a deeper sense of happiness arises from being connected to the deeper levels within yourself. So it's the creativity, creative insight. You can think and think and think, and you can't come up with a solution. But if it's a moment thinking subsides and you feel just what's left is a sense of presence, and then very often you say, oh, why didn't I realize that before? The realization is suddenly there, so that you connect with a deeper intelligence within you, and that's available to everybody. But unfortunately, this is not what is taught at school. Or many inessential things are taught at school, but what really matters is not taught at school yet, but hopefully it will be soon.
And there are some schools that are beginning to teach it, both here and around the world, and it's going to make such a difference in children's lives, because this clutter, this voice that we talked about, I call it the obnoxious roommate living in my head. You know, the voice of doubt, of fear, all the negative fantasies about the future, all the judgments about the past. That's what really stops us, right, from being present and from being our creative best.
Yes, there's the voice in the head, which is the compulsive thinking. I call it an addiction, because probably 80% of your thinking is unnecessary. It just interferes with your enjoyment of life, but that's how it is. So to realize that, to be able to take time off. The 5 minutes you mentioned are important, but in addition I would recommend mini meditations where you break the stream of thinking for very brief moments. For example, what I recommend, every time you get into your car, you sit down, the door goes, take 30 seconds to just be there fully in the present moment without. That creates an inner space for those 30 seconds. You just, and unless it's an emergency, then don't do it. But in most cases, it's not an emergency you're driving to. You may have little time, but really 30 seconds doesn't make that much difference. Another thing I recommend, I talk about it in The Power of Now, certain routine activities that you perform every day, bring your fullest attention to them, washing your hands, and again you get out of the mind and come into experiencing the present moment fully. And that really is another key to, we could call spiritual awakening, is asking yourself, what is my relationship with the present moment? How do I treat the present moment? And the shocking thing is that for most people, the present moment unconsciously is regarded as an obstacle that they need to overcome because they really want to be there. So the present moment, which is life itself, because your entire life can only be in this moment. In fact, this moment, your life is always only this moment. It cannot not be this moment. So your entire life unfolds in the space of this moment. It's always now. Now people live as if the opposite were true, because they are so focused on the next moment or the one after that the only reality this moment has for them is as a stepping stone to the next moment. So it becomes a means to an end. What is life itself, you should give your fullest attention to what the most important thing in your life, which is this moment. So of course, it's wonderful to have goals. You have to strive towards that you want to achieve this or that. That's all wonderful. But if the goal that you want to reach takes up so much of your attention that you regard the present moment as inferior to this mental projection of the goal you want to achieve, then the quality of the present moment, which is your life, becomes diminished, because then everything that happens in the present moment you get irritated about, because you don't really want to be here, you want to already be there. So your happiness or your fulfillment is then dependent on achieving a particular goal. But your entire life is a journey, because even when you achieve that goal, it's only a short moment of, I've got it, I'm there, and now what? It's already the end, and then there must be another goal. So your entire life is a journey, and if you miss this step, the present step on your journey, it's always this one step, then you miss the entire thing, because you think you need to arrive at some future point. So a balance is needed between having goals and striving towards goals, which is wonderful, which we could call doing, because it's achieving a goal is you have to act, you have to do, and we could also call it becoming. You are this, you become that. That's good, that's one aspect of life. But if you are totally dominated by doing and becoming and trying to reach, your life is completely out of balance, because you're missing the being now, the present moment. So you're not honoring life now, and so if you make the present moment into means to an end, every human being you encounter, you reduce to a means to an end too. You want to use him or her for something that you want to get to. So this is a dysfunctional way to live. So we need to find a balance between having goals and focusing on the goals, but also focusing on the incredible aliveness and the beauty of the present moment, and acknowledging how vital that is. So, in other words, the doing, you give your fullest attention to whatever it is you're doing now. That's spiritual. So you don't have to necessarily to be spiritual. Stop doing. That's one, you can't, it's beautiful too, you need to sometimes stop doing. But not have two compartments in your mind. One is the spiritual one, when I go meditate, and then get all flustered again when you stop your meditation. Or as the man said, the man who was doing his Buddhist meditation on the metta, loving kindness meditation, he was doing the loving kindness. I love everybody in this house, I love everybody in this city, I love myself, I love the universe. And his daughter came in, Daddy, Daddy, and oh, for God's sake, leave me alone, can't you see I'm meditating? So this is the separation between the spiritual self and the everyday self. So we need to bring the spiritual dimension also into the doing. And where is your attention? This is a question really that you need to ask yourself all the time. Is your attention exclusively on where you want to get to, or is the main focus of your attention is on whatever it is you are addressing at this moment? So you honor it, whether it's a human interaction or whether you're writing an email, whatever it is, to be fully present in the now, and then still know, of course you know where you want to get to, but your main attention is on the step you are taking at this moment. You know where you're going, I'm going there, but at this moment I'm taking this step, and it's an honoring of the present moment.
And that's one of the hardest things with technology, that we're in a state of perpetual partial attention.
Yes.
Where it's much harder to be fully present doing anything. And that's one of the things we're seeing with children, with the explosion of attention deficit disorder.
Yes.
We see that at dinners, in fact in New York now, some friends of mine in advertising have started a game where when you're at dinner in a restaurant, everybody puts their phones in the middle of the table, and the person who reaches for the phone first pays the bill. Just basically anything to encourage people to be fully present at that moment.
Yes.
But last night you said something interesting at Mark's. He was telling us how David Blaine, the magician, had gone underwater and held his breath for 8.5 minutes.
Yes, we watched him.
Yes, I came late, so he was telling us the story, and you said, that's impressive, but you, can actually stop thinking for 8.5 minutes.
Yeah, well, somebody asked me, can you do that? I said, no, I can't do that, but I can stop thinking for 8 minutes. And that's my main achievement in life, that I'm quite getting a job. It's a wonderful thing to be able to, when you choose to fully experience this moment. You don't really need to add an overlay of conceptual structures on the present moment. You can just be with your perception of the present moment. I can look at you and fully take in not only externally who you are, but also sense your presence. I can do that without needing to impose some kind of judgment or formulating some kind of opinion in my mind about who you are. So to be free of that is a wonderful thing, and I think everybody can practice that, and you practice by going out into nature, which is a spiritual thing, and by contemplating nature. You look at the sky, even if you're not in nature, you look out of the window, and there's the busyness of the city, but there is the vast expanse of the sky, and for a moment you look at that, and in that moment of looking, you don't need to think. So the sky, or a tree, or mountains, of course, or an animal, or your dog, can connect you with that sense of presence or beingness where you don't need to impose thinking on the world. And you haven't gone to sleep, you're just fully present. That's real mindfulness. I don't use the word mindfulness because it seems to imply that the mind is full. That is not what it means, but this is why I don't use the word. So people can learn from, you can learn from your dog. You look at how joyful the dog is when the dog meets you, and the dog has no opinion about you. There's a saying, that a little prayer that goes, please God, make me into the person that my dog thinks I am. Now,
there's another thing in Washington. They say in Washington, if you want a friend, get a dog.
Yes, that's right, yeah. So we can connect with that by using nature, even if you live in a city. Of course there's nature somewhere. Put a flower next to your computer and occasionally take your gaze and look at the flower for a few seconds. And you don't need to think in that moment. Getting in touch with that state of presence where you don't need to continuously trapped in the voice in your head.
You've said once that one of the hardest things that we are facing is the sort of the illusory self, our own idea of the self. And given that now we spend so much time in social media, filtering our own reality, presenting a certain image of ourselves, how much harder is it to find the authentic self in the age of the selfie?
Well, yes, that's a good question. There's always been, of course, people construct for themselves a self-image and then live through that self-image, which consists of stories that you tell yourself about who you are, which starts with your parents, what your parents tell you who you are, then you adopt those stories and what society tells you, or you counteract what society says and you develop your own stories. So gradually a self-image develops in people's minds. So this is a loss of authenticity. So they live through a self-image instead of being themselves. And like Facebook, that can actually magnify that particular dysfunction, because in Facebook you construct for yourself an image. So, and most of the people it's a fiction that they create for Facebook. And everybody thinks that the fiction they see on Facebook of other people, that's their real life, and I'm the only one that's the unhappy one. Look at where he is, he's having this wonderful meal, so get a picture of the plate full of, I'm in this and that restaurant. Wow, and then you get the comments, cool, it's great. And then I just bought this thing, and then, oh wow, you get the comments, and then you think, oh, I haven't bought anything in 2 weeks. So it's always, but what you don't realize is these people unconsciously create a fictional image, which people have always done, but here it gets even magnified, because there you have the Facebook page, and everybody creates a fictional image. So it's very seductive, and can be, I'm not saying don't use Facebook. Do you use Facebook?
Yes, I use Facebook, but my younger daughter has revolted against all social media, and she doesn't use any social media. And last Christmas we were all in Hawaii, and we made a family decision for 1 week to go on a digital detox. And it was absolutely wonderful. It was great for all of us to realize you could have a meal without Instagramming it. Did you know that? You could watch a sunset without tweeting a picture of it to your friends. And I think a digital detox is something,
yes.
I'd love you to tell us about it, because in a sense, that's what God did, right? The Shabbat is a kind of detox from
yes.
the week of work and demands and pressures.
Yes, digital detox is a good word. Another thing that you just mentioned is the taking pictures of wherever you are, at concerts. You sometimes see people at a concert, and all you see is these little screens, people they're filming video. Now that's very interesting, because they are not fully experiencing that moment. They can't be, what they experience is videotaping this moment. That's the experience, and they hope when they get home They can watch that thing on the screen and then fully experience the concert on the screen. But of course, when that happens, it's gone. They're just seeing the image on the little screen. You're preventing yourself from fully experiencing this moment in the hope, because you're postponing. It's a form of madness. You're postponing the full experience of this moment because you think you need to film it. It used to be only the case, even before the cameras, before the cell phone cameras, they had the ordinary cameras, and the typical tourist thing already 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago was when people visited other places. The typical thing a tourist does, he hangs a camera hanging on his neck, and then he goes already never experiencing fully another one is we were in Europe in some cathedrals, which are amazing places, the ancient cathedrals of Europe. And when you go in, you can hire the commentary. So you put your headphones on, you press the button, and then it tells you, now walk to the right, now you walk, and then you hear. Now, there's nothing, it's good with knowing certain things about it. You learn a lot, which is true. But what you're not doing, what it prevents you from experiencing it for yourself. There are two ways of experiencing, for example, an ancient cathedral or anything. One is through knowledge, and you can tell you know how they built it, when it was built, what it meant. But another way is experiencing just by being there, present with it. And this is my preference. I'd rather miss conceptual knowledge about the cathedral, but I go in there and go, and you look around and see this vast space. And now conceptually, I don't know anything, but on a deeper level, I know the cathedral more deeply than a person who only knows it through conceptual knowledge.
It's the same in museums. You know, my youngest daughter, I keep talking about her, maybe she's watching, Isabella, she graduated in art history last year, and one class was about going to a museum and standing in front of a painting for 2 hours and writing what you experienced. And she was at the National Gallery in London, and she was standing in front of a painting, and after 20 minutes the guard came up to her and asked her what she was doing. Because even in museums now, people are so used to just rushing through from one thing to the other. And I have a question about this way of rushing through and this impatience of modern life. But Mark, I want to let you know that I cannot see the clock, and I could be here all day, but you have a program. So anytime you want Eckart and I to stop, please come up the stage and take us away. But until I see Mark coming up, I'll keep talking with you.
Okay.
So, I'm fascinated by your biography because just to give a few highlights to everyone, in 1979 you had your epiphany, you know, your profound spiritual experience that changed your life.
Yeah, I think 77. Yeah.
1977?
Yeah, I think so.
And you basically then went on to do things which from the outside would look like drifting. Like you dropped out of your PhD program at Cambridge, you were sleeping on your friends' couches in London and spending time on parks in Russell Square contemplating the universe. Your mother thought you were lost.
Mad.
Mad. And then almost 18 years later, you wrote The Power of Now. I mean, before that you were teaching, I mean, you started doing some things. And then The Power of Now comes out, but it took another 10 years before Oprah spoke about it and it became this sensation.
Not 10 years, I think only 3 years after.
3 years? But it was like a long time.
It usually takes Oprah a while to discover that the book is out. It's very rare that she discovers a book moment it comes out. Even the New Earth she didn't do, which was after the Power of Now. It took her, I think, almost 2 years to actually read the book, because she gets so much stuff sent to her, she can't cope with it all. I understand that, because I get stuff sent to and I can't read it all. It's impossible.
But my point is that it took almost 20 years or more for you to become an overnight success. I say that because so often I think the greatest enemy of achievement is discouragement.
Yes.
You know, so often we see that we start something and it doesn't go quite the way we want.
Yes, yes.
There are challenges, there are problems. So can you give us some clues as to how we can deal with discouragement?
Well, I knew that this book wanted and needed to be written, so there was a strong sense of, a strong energy behind it, and I had to write this book. And I often, when I mentioned to people, they said, "What are you doing?" It took 3 years. For 3 years I worked on The Power of Now, and sometimes people ask me, "What are you doing?" "I'm writing a book." "What about?" "About living in the present moment." And often people said, "It's been done already. The present moment is no longer fashionable." So this could have been discouraging, but I didn't believe them. So, and I remember saying, I don't mind whether this book sells just a few copies and just affects a few people's lives or many people's lives, or whether it sells any copies at all. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to sell tomatoes after that. I don't know why I said that. I don't know why tomatoes, but I said I wouldn't have been happy with doing anything knowing that I have fulfilled a kind of mission. I was supposed to do that. I had that strong feeling. So I didn't get discouraged, because there was a strong sense of purpose behind it. And the writing itself was an energy stream came, so that's quite often the inspiration came riding on that energy stream, and that's extremely fulfilling. So the writing process was very intense, but also joyful. It was never stressful, and my sense of satisfaction or happiness was already in the doing, in the writing. If my sense of satisfaction or happiness had been on this mental projection of I need to write a book that is successful or even helps people, then the writing would have happened in a space of some degree of dissatisfaction, because I would have wanting to arrive at the point of satisfaction in the imagined future. But the doing was so joyful, not joyful, sometimes people associate joyful with being very letting go and being relaxed and so, oh.
Like being on a cloud, right?
Yes, that's one way of being joyful, but there's another way of being joyful that is intense energy focus. And you go, when you're creating, and you business people know that, I'm sure Mark knows that, when you're in the moment of creation, there's an intense energy, and there's a great joyfulness in the energy of creation. And that is what I experienced. So fortunately I had not postponed my satisfaction to the point of success in the future, but the doing. So in that sense I was successful already, because I was deeply enjoying the act of creation. And I think that's perhaps an important lesson for everybody. Don't wait to be successful at some future point. Have a successful relationship with the present moment.